Hi friends, welcome to Morning Albums. In this video, we're going to talk about some of my favorite albums for the fall season. Hi everyone, Kyle here. So fall is one of my favorite seasons. I live in Connecticut, so we get very beautiful fall foliage. The leaves start turning all sorts of different colors. We have a lot of different apple orchards that sell donuts and apple cider. It's just a great time, and there's just something in the air that I love about the fall. And also, I love listening to music in the fall. I like listening to acoustic music, sometimes some jazz, but mostly a lot of music with acoustic guitars, and that just feels very cozy. Very folky. I like country music. I like music with a lot of strings. So the fall is just a great time to cozy up and listen to some music. Fair warning, I'm not saying that these are the best fall albums of all time. These are just some of my favorites. Please, if you have any albums or artists that you love to listen to in the fall, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear and we could talk about it even further. So one of the first albums that I want to talk about is an album I love throwing on in the fall, and it is Mazzy Star, Seasons of Your Day. Now, this might be a little surprising to some people because it's not necessarily considered one of their best albums. I think most of the critical acclaim goes to So Tonight That I Might See or Among My Swan. But this album just holds a special place in my heart because it's the first album that came out that was released after I had become a fan. And there's just some really great songs on it. The whole record is very airy. You can hear the room. There's a lot of flourishes of electric guitar, whether that be slide guitar or just distorted little riffs here and there. Of course, Hope's vocals are amazing and warm and soothing. You have other instrumentation like glockenspiel, there's tambourine, there's harmonicas, there's just really nice percussion work. It's just really special to me. I love throwing it on this season. The record itself that I have here has a gatefold, and it's just a beautiful purple pressing. It's like a transparent purple that's just really lovely. This came out in 2013. One of my favorites to throw on. The song In the Kingdom is it's such a great opener, and then you have songs like Come and Burn, and of course Seasons of Your Day and Lay Myself Down. It's a wonderful listen. I would totally recommend this if you're looking for those autumn vibes. So the next record I want to talk about is a classic. This is Nirvana Unplugged. Don't really need to get too far into this one because if you listen to music, I'm sure you're familiar with this album. So this is Nirvana's acoustic set for MTV Unplugged. There's some wonderful songs on here. What I love about this album is that Kurt and Nirvana chose songs that would translate well to an acoustic format. So not necessarily their hits. They didn't go out and try to make an acoustic version of Smells Like Teen Spirit because it just probably wouldn't work. So they chose a lot of songs that fans would be familiar with, some deep cuts. They chose song off their first record, Bleach, which I think a lot of people hadn't heard at the time. The only hit on here, as I could tell, is Come As You Are, which does translate well to an acoustic format. And then in addition to that, they brought in the Meat Puppets for a few songs, which is another great band. And Kurt did a great job on the vocals for those songs. And then they did a few covers, obviously Bowie's The Man Who Sold the World, and then Where Did You Sleep Last Night by Leadbelly. A really haunting performance. And Kurt's vocals are just, you can hear the strain in his voice, the power. Just an incredible performance. There's a look in his eye at one point where he pauses before he starts to sing the last refrain, and it's just so powerful. So Nirvana is, probably my gateway drug to music. I started listening to Nirvana, and then I read about all the bands they liked, like the Pixies and Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. and Black Flag and all these sorts of bands that were around at the time. And it really just catapulted me into my musical discovery of underground music and punk rock music. So I have a soft spot for Nirvana, and this is just a perfect album to throw on in the fall season. Next up, we have Jessica Pratt. And this is On Your Own Love Again. This was released in 2015. Just a wonderful listen. Jessica's finger-picking style is very pleasing, especially in the fall. A lot of acoustic guitars, very sparse record. Probably just, as far as I'm remembering, maybe even just guitar and vocals. There might be some other instrumentation there, but it's very subtle, if so. Jessica's voice is very unique and just great songwriting. Very lo-fi as well. I'm not sure how this was recorded, but it wouldn't surprise me if this was on tape. It's got a very warm quality, but very fitting for the material. So I would definitely check this out. This is Jessica Pratt. She's got a couple other albums too, and they're all really good for the fall season. I would totally recommend them. Now I want to talk about the self-titled release from Townes Van Zandt. This was released in 1969. Townes is one of the most gifted songwriters I've ever heard. A lot of just acoustic guitars. Most of the songs are just Townes vocals and acoustic guitars, but there's some with some drums and other percussion. But just great songwriting. Very melancholic vocals. You can hear the longing in Townes' voice. Bittersweet songs about loneliness and drug use and alcohol use. Just an incredible album. Songs like Columbine and Fare Thee Well, Miss Carousel are amazing. Check out Fare Thee Well, Miss Carousel if you're kind of trying to figure out if Townes is an artist that you want to check out. It's a great entry point. It's got some nice drums and just a very well-written folk country rockish song. So would totally recommend Townes. If you like singer-songwriters like Dylan or John Prine, or even, country artists like Guy Clark or Waylon Jennings, Merle Haggard, those are a little more country, stereotypical outlaw country than maybe Townes is, but just great singer-songwriter music with that country influence. And now we have an album from one of my all-time favorite bands. This is Radiohead, A Moon-Shaped Pool. This was released in 2016. It's their most recent album. They haven't put out anything since. And it's such a great album for a band that's been in the game as long as Radiohead, and they're still putting out this quality material is really saying something. And this actually, and this is a tall order because I have many favorite Radiohead albums, but this is among maybe in my top 3. I would say this is their most autumnal sounding album because there's a lot of strings. So, and they're no stranger to using strings. Obviously, Johnny Greenwood, who's a multi-instrumentalist in the band, has composed albums for movie soundtracks. So he's very renowned for those efforts. But I think this is like the first album where they use strings that really strikes me as, sounding like a chamber pop art rock album. Just really, like, the opening track, Burn the Witch, has strings right in the forefront. There's just such good flourishes of those elements in songs like Daydreaming. And then you have songs like Deck's Dark, which have incredible use of like reverb. The thing about Radiohead that I love is they put little just flourishes in their music that makes the production so interesting. And even just the way Tom delivers his vocals, sometimes he just does things a little differently than you expect, and it makes it so memorable. So there's songs like Present Tense and The Numbers, where acoustic guitar is really in the forefront, and obviously too showcases those strings. And then there's the closer, True Love Waits, which is a Radiohead fan favorite that never had a proper release on an album. And it's just a nice piano track, just great acoustic instrumentation that suits the fall season very well. And one of my favorite Radiohead albums. I can't believe they're still doing it, but, you know, I know it's been a while since this was released. Hopefully they get together for another album, but, you know, I have high hopes for any material they release ever. They're just such an interesting band, and they've had every opportunity to be boring, and they haven't. They're always trying different things, using electronics, using strings, using different rhythmic structures. They're just a phenomenal band, one of the best in my opinion. This also has some beautiful imagery on the gatefold and just really nice white vinyl. Great to see. Then we have Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen, and this came out in 1982, right before Born in the USA. And it's a really interesting album for Bruce because it was recorded on a 4-track tape cassette recorder, which gives it this really lo-fi quality. I think if I remember correctly, that these were just supposed to be demos, and Bruce just liked the way they sounded so much that he turned it into a proper release. But this is definitely one of the more interesting works in Bruce's discography. I mean, I love a lot of Bruce Springsteen albums, but this is just, it's kind of it peacocks a little bit because it sounds so different from his usual output. So it has songs like Atlantic City, which if you've never heard this and you want to get a taste, I'd recommend playing that song. Just a really wonderful acoustic pop tune with some really cool harmonica, and Bruce does these little woo in the background that sound really cool. And just it's a very sparse album, very beautiful, very interesting, especially just considering that this came out between The River and Born in the USA, which are just two huge rock and roll albums. Just a really cool release. And, you know, I think Bruce is a great songwriter. I think he does interesting work as well. And it was great to see. I'm so happy he took a chance with putting this one out. Just a great record and just perfectly suited for the fall as well. And then we have Morrissey's 1994 release, Vauxhall and I, not sure how to pronounce it. Just a really cool album. I know Morrissey can be kind of a controversial figure these days, but I'm a huge Smiths fan, and this is my favorite solo album of his. If you're familiar with the Smiths, you're familiar with a lot of jangly guitar work. This album kind of dials that back a bit and has more acoustic instrumentation in the forefront. There's phenomenal songs like Spring Hill Gym, The More You Ignore Me, The Closer I Get. Why Don't You Find Out For Yourself is just an incredible song. And the closer track, Speedway, is also an incredible song with a lot of really interesting lyrics as you kind of come to expect with a Morrissey release. So this is just a really cool album. If you don't want to get into it because of some of the upsetting things that Morrissey has said, I totally get it. But great album, and I like to throw this one on in the fall as well. Now, if I was going to say that there is a must-listen-to album on this list that totally encapsulates the fall season for me, it's this one. This is Nick Drake's Pink Moon. I have this on CD. Just a fantastic album. Nick experiments with a lot of alternate tunings, which just gives the guitar a wonderful sound, his a wonderful tone. His voice is beautiful. There's some incredible songs on this. It's mostly just Nick's vocals and his acoustic guitar. The only other instrumentation on this album is just in the title track, I believe, which is just a couple notes on the piano. The title track is a standout for me. There's Which Will, there's Road, there's the song Horn, which he doesn't even sing on, and it's just a few plucked strings on the guitar, maybe like 6 or 7 notes, which, seems very simple and easy to do, but I have a feeling a less accomplished artist wouldn't pull it off as well as Nick Drake does. Just a phenomenal album from a truly wonderful artist. And I would also recommend his other 2 albums. I don't own them I don't have physical copies of them. There's 5 Leaves Left and Brighter Later. These albums are fantastic, but include a little bit more instrumentation, a little bit more production, and there's also some chamber elements, some strings as well on those. So this is just more of a sparse listen, but I think it just really encapsulates how strong Nick Drake's songwriting is, guitar playing, and vocals. And then we have this wonderful box set I picked up called Siouxsie by Fuubutsushi. I think that's I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. But this is a band that recorded 4 albums over the course of 2 years during the pandemic, so from 2020 to 2021, and they released an album in a different season, so 4 albums in 4 different seasons. And I'll recommend, just for the sake of this autumn video, the CD that was, or the album that was released in the fall, which is the Fuubutsushi album, their namesake album. But there's the other work. The other 3 albums are also wonderful listens in the fall. They're just very ECM influenced, ECM style jazz, a lot of just nice field recordings, percussion, saxophone, a lot of just really nice guitar work. Just wonderful to listen to. And anytime I get a chance to talk about this, I will, because I love these 4 albums so much over the last 2 years. So I got this wonderful box set, and it's one of my favorite purchases, and it actually influenced me to get back into CDs as well. After I got this, I really wanted to listen to it, so I was able to find a CD player, and then I've been since then I've been buying a lot more CDs, particularly newer music I'm into. So I have them to thank as well for that. So just a great box set, great fall listening. Check this one out. So as I've been talking about, I love music with acoustic instruments in it in the fall, but there's also a place for spookier music in the autumn season, because Halloween, there's pumpkins out, there's just that vibe. There's that crispness in the air. Halloween's coming. It's exciting. We all love to watch our Halloween specials. We like to throw on the horror movies, and I'm no different. So this is an album that showcases both of those worlds and those sounds. This is Siouxsie Wolfe, and this is Unknown Rooms, a collection of acoustic songs. So it is acoustic-y, but it's also a little spooky, because Siouxsie Wolfe brings the goth vibes. She has a darker sound. There's some incredible songs on this, like Flatlands, just a beautiful, beautiful chorus with the song has a really simple guitar part, but then it explodes. The chorus explodes with Siouxsie's wonderful vocals and then some string instrumentation as well. Siouxsie's music sounds very ethereal, it has that goth influence to it. A lot of her other work is a little more, can be heavy, have some like doom metal influence, as well as have some electronic. But it was really cool to see her pull back on this and do more of an acoustic release. And then she's got like just very cool song structure as well, and elements in her songs, like The Way We Used To. Kind of has this, like, I would say almost like 60s girl group phrase going on, vocal phrase throughout the song, like a very cool, just interesting work. I love the more straightforward acoustic songs like Flatlands, like Appalachia, Spinning Centers. Our Work was good, but there's also just cool tracks like Boyfriend that take it down and really have a more sinister sound, and Siouxsie's voice taps into a different tone than some of the rest of the songs on this album. Just really cool. I love her work. I love all of her work, and I always like to give it a spin. This came out in 2012, and I still throw it on every fall, so it's one I always come back to. What's that sound? What's going on? And we're off to more spooky picks. So, as I mentioned before, I like a lot of acoustic guitar in my music in the fall. But now I'm going to talk about music that just bring those spooky vibes. And there's no better album to kick it off than Black Sabbath's debut self-titled release, Black Sabbath. So this album, I love putting this on when I'm in that Halloween mood. The opening track, Black Sabbath, has everything that needs to be said about this album and this band. It starts off with these church bells, and then it's got the most ominous, heavy riff you'll ever hear, and almost it's like kickstarting heavy metal, in my opinion. It's just wonderful album. And then there's songs like The Wizard that have harmonica, just incredible guitar playing, so heavy. Ozzy has incredible vocal delivery, just a really interesting voice. Their music can be sinister, but could also be groovy. It's just awesome riffs, awesome bass playing, awesome drum work. Great band, great record. And if you want Halloween vibes, you always head to Black Sabbath. And then I've been on a love-hate relationship with this band my whole life, but I think right now I'm firmly in the love camp. This is The Doors' Strange Days. Just a cool album. I think this fits the Halloween bill because of a lot of the song titles and the lyrical content, like Strange Days, People Are Strange, When the Music's Over, Moonlight Drive. Just a lot of cool lyrical imagery, a lot of cool spooky imagery within the lyrics. Just strange, psychedelic, just wonderful stuff. You know, I kind of have grown out of the Doors in different points in my life, but I don't know. I think I was just rebelling under some stupid, some stupid thing I had in my head. But at the end of the day, I think Jim Morrison's vocal tone is really cool. I think the keyboard work is really interesting, and of course, you know, Krieger's guitar work is cool. Just a cool band. I can't deny it. And this album is really cool to throw on in Halloween. Just very strange, weird, and it brings the spooky vibes. So that's The Doors' Strange Days. And last but not least, we have Siouxsie and the Banshees. This is A Kiss in the Dreamhouse. Very cool goth rock, art pop music. This is the only album I have a physical copy of, but they have a lot of other cool releases as well. Cascade, Green Fingers, She's a Carnival is a great song on this album. There's some kind of more slower, interesting tracks, but then there's also some more upbeat, danceable, gothic tracks that you might come to. You know, it sounds of the time, but in a way that is very charming. This is an album that was released in 1982, so we have a lot of that, you know, those electronic instruments involved, as well as it sounds like there's some drum machines used. I'm sure some synthesizers, things of that nature. So just cool, mysterious sounding, ethereal, psychedelic, very cool stuff. Try out Siouxsie, Sue. She's got some incredible work. If you're also looking for some more spooky sounding music, some Halloween-ish music to throw on during the fall season, I don't have physical copies of these bands, but I would recommend the Misfits, of course, Danzig's solo albums, especially the first three, or maybe even some of Sonic Youth's albums like Evil or Bad Moon Rising. And that's it. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Let me know what you like to listen to in the fall or in the autumn season. I'd love to hear if you prefer sort of those jazz or acoustic music, or even some of the more spooky sounding music that I mentioned. So let me know in the comments what's your favorite thing to listen to in the fall. And please consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that subscribe button below. Please follow me on Instagram as well at Morning Albums, where I post more short form content of music that I'm listening to. Okay, thanks.